If you want it bad enough, you just have to work harder. And if you don't have what you already want, then you're clearly just lazy. And if you aren't waking up at 4:30 in the morning to get stuff done, then what are you even doing? It's time to rise and grind, baby. You can have any life that you want if you are willing to put in the work. If you've been on the internet at all in the past 5 years, you have probably heard phrases similar to this about if you just work harder, you can accomplish anything you want and get to your dreams. You just gotta put in more effort, more work, more time, more grind, more hustle. It's always about more dedication to get what you want. This type of messaging can be really, really attractive for people who are trying to either start a business or really launch their careers or really are in a transitionary phase in our life, as most of us often are. We're constantly as humans striving to be better and do better and feel better and live happier lifestyles that are more in alignment with what our dreams and goals are. So yeah, when we hear that really all it takes is just more effort and more work and more grind and more hustle to get there, it's really enticing to, well, dive all in. But here's the thing, it's not sustainable. But what does it practically look like to still go after your goals and dreams, but maybe not at such a pace that is like sprinting when really it's a marathon? What does it look like to go at a pace with grace and to rest and to actively take time for yourself in the process of going after your dreams and goals? So thankfully, when I started my business, it was really important for me to find somebody to help me with that process that was going to teach me how to still build a business of my dreams, build a lifestyle of my dreams, but without the extreme hustle culture enmeshed into it. And that's when I met Jennifer Reyes, who is a coach on faith, life, and business. And she really does a great job of teaching how to build a business or do your work from a standpoint of rest and going at a pace with grace and still accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish, but doing it in a way that's not going to lead to burnout town. So on this particular topic, I decided it was best to talk to Jennifer myself and to capture some of her insight. Oh, and one more thing. Something that I really appreciate about Jennifer's approach to coaching is that she incorporates faith into the way that she coaches. And for me, that was something that was very important. Now, I know I don't talk a lot about my faith journey on this channel, but if you hear us utilizing a lot of language around faith, around God, around a kingdom mindset, you may hear some of those things. And that's just something that I really felt was helpful for me in my journey, and that she really integrates a lot into some of her coaching work as well. What's up, you guys? Today I'm here with Jennifer Reyes. She's a non-traditional coach for faith, life, and biz, and we're going to be talking about hustle culture and the things that you can do to prevent burnout, which is huge, among many other things. So I'm excited to dive in, and thank you so much for being on, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
So I've been working with you for a long time now, and I think one thing that you've always done a really good job of staying consistent with and telling me, and I know, other people that you work with, is going at a pace with grace and the importance of resting. And I remember hearing that at first and being like, wait, what? How am I supposed to do that in my business? Like, I have a lot to do, tons to get done. So tell me a little bit about why that's so important in your messaging and why that's so crucial to something that, is part of your story.
Yeah. So when I first started in my business, I was operating from a different perspective where I was constantly hustling and constantly on the go. And so I had this theme song running through my head back in the day when I was in corporate, and it goes like this. Every day I'm hustling. Right? And there
Original
I am.
Rick Ross, yeah.
And there I am, like running late, to catch the train or drive into work or wherever I was at the particular time throughout different, careers that I had in sales, actually. But when I launched my business a little bit over 9 years ago, I knew that business had to be done differently. What I didn't know, though, is that I wasn't going to fully understand what that truly meant because I was laid out for 3 years with health challenges. And so if I can share anything today, it would be, to take a listen to what we're going to share today if you are falling into some of these hustling habits, because it really can take a toll on your life and, of course, then your business.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you guys that watch my channel are kind of in that stage where you are starting your first professional career, or maybe midway into that, and are kind of realizing this kind of game you've been playing, right? Where you really are plunging into stuff really hard and burning out, and what that feels like. You probably are accustomed to that. So we're here to just share that there are other ways to move forward differently that I've learned from Jennifer, and she teaches a lot of other people. So we're going to talk all about that. But I'd love to dive into, if you feel comfortable sharing, a little bit more of your story and how you learned this. You mentioned like health challenges. So what were some of the things that, laid you out flat? What was that like, and how did you end up coming back from that?
Yeah. Well, I think when I first launched my business, I was just so excited to get going and to get started, and I was on fire, right? I really wanted to move forward in this because it was a concept and idea that I had pushed off for about 13 years, 13 years where I sat in my gifts and blessings, and I felt like I was moving forward, but I was really spinning around in circles. And it wasn't until I decided, to seek guidance and support on launching my business, which I'm so grateful I did. But what I didn't learn and what was promoted, in that time and still is today, is you got to just go. Play, work hard now, and then you can, play later, whatever,
Work hard, play hard.
Nobody?
Work hard, play hard, am I right?
Yeah, you can sleep, later when you're dead, how people say that. And it's just, it really wasn't serving me. And so I knew I needed to do things differently. But what I didn't realize too is how much, taking breaks or eating properly, was important. And there were times where I wasn't even hungry. I was so into the work that I was doing and serving, others, that I just was neglecting myself. And I went around out there thinking that my priorities were straight, they were clear. But the thing is that I was missing myself in all of that. So now, it looks different for me. Now it is about, God first for me. So God first, then myself, then my family and friends, and then business. And a lot of people flip that around, and that's how I was doing it, where I thought, okay, we got to do this business thing first. I'm using my gifts. I'm serving out there. This is really great. But to what extent,
Yeah, that'll only fill your tank for so long to focus on the business piece, because sure, it is feeling good to serve others and to utilize those gifts, right? But if you're not putting yourself first or God first and prioritizing things a little bit differently, it's so easily to get worn down way quicker than you imagined that to happen. And then you wake up one day and you're like, wow, I feel like I have no direction, or I feel like no clarity in my business. I don't feel passionate anymore about what I'm doing. I mean, what are some of the other symptoms you've seen other business owners or self-employed individuals or entrepreneurs really show up with?
Yeah, or it's even a struggle to even wake up early in the morning. And when I say early, maybe, before 10 a.m., which is not that even early, right? But I know some people that are getting up, in the afternoon because they're staying up so late. They can't fall asleep early, or they're looking at their screens, or they don't want to miss out. They're going to this event and that event, and they're here, there, and everywhere. But then what's happening really in their business, they're really not seeing the growth and results. They feel exhausted. They feel like they're doing something because they're out and about, but they're really not moving forward.
So what about all these people that are like out there, and I mean, I see it all the time on social media, the people that are hustling harder and just like waking up at 5 a.m., working out first thing in the morning, doing all the things, like, have 4 or 5 businesses. Like, how are they managing it? How are they, supposedly successful and doing all this kind of hustle culture stuff and like managing all this productivity in their lives? Like, what is that?
So what I hear a lot from the people that share with me confidentially is that it looks great on social media, but really what's happening behind the scenes isn't so much. Whether it's their own personal health is declining, whether it's their relationships are beginning to, get scattered or even, broken up, whether that's with a spouse, loved one, family member, whatever it may be, their work is coming first before these relationships, right? So that's one of the things.
So what you're saying is really that even though it might be shown on social media that these people are like, doing this hustle culture thing and really like honing in on their productivity and saying that they have these great relationships and stuff, you're seeing, when working with some of these individuals too, you're seeing the opposite of that. You're seeing that they may be successful in their work, but at what cost, right?
And really, they're not really that happy. They're not filled with peace. They're not filled with joy. They're constantly on the go. And then, unfortunately, there's more severe things that could end up taking place, whether that is a stroke, their blood pressure is increasing, whatever the health ailments may be. For myself, I know I had major digestive issues. I had anxiety, panic attacks. My body wasn't absorbing the proteins and nutrients that it needed. My hair was like, I had to cut my hair, y'all. It was really short.
And now look at how long and luscious it is. So healthy.
And my eyelashes were like non-existent, even though I have, a little support on today here. But, it was just, it was really hard on me, for 3 years to be laid out. And I thought it would only take a year for me to recover. But then I tried to speed it up because I figured, well, I can do business, at speed. So why can't I do my health that way? And it just, it ended up making it worse.
Yeah.
And so, some of the things that you even helped me with, Victoria, was making sure that you carve out that time. You take those breaks, you lay down even if you don't want to take a nap. That actually really, really helps. And not booking yourself back to back to back to back. One of my coaches back when ended up telling me that I was going to burn out if I keep going the way that I was going. I figured I would just book all of my clients earlier towards the beginning of the week, and then I would just take that 3-day weekend. And what ended up happening is I ended up not wanting to work on that Friday. I wanted a 3-day weekend, and then I did what one of my mentors suggested, where for herself, she would take off the last week of the month, and she would work really hard, throughout the first 3 weeks. That didn't serve me either. That wasn't, how I'm wired. So whatever we're sharing with you today may not apply to you. You have to really dive in and see, how are you wired? How are you being led to show up and serve as well as work from a place of rest?
Yeah. So how does that look like for somebody, like someone to show up and to be able to find what rest looks like for them? Because like you said, like I'm not wired how you're wired. Like I'm not a napper, but for me, what's really reinvigorating, re-energizing is like going on a bike ride or going on a hike or something where I can be active. But how do people find that out about themselves, and how do they find how to not necessarily like balance, but to flow, to ebb and flow with work and rest?
Yeah, I like to look at it more like a dance, right? And so my husband and I, we're dancers. We're salsa
Really
dancers.
good.
We
Really
like
good.
to, move around on the dance floor. But the thing is, if I was trying to lead him, we probably wouldn't end up anywhere except falling on the floor, right? And he'd also get pretty frustrated with me because how is he supposed to lead me if I'm trying to lead and overtake that spot? And so for me, it's really important that I allow God to lead. I let Him lead and direct my paths. And so for some people, that may look a little bit differently, but something else other than yourself is really important, right? To allow yourself to be led. And again, I'm only going to talk about my relationship with God. I'm not going to, phrase that in a different way for myself, but really just allow that flow to happen, And then so when you can take that away from yourself, then you remove all this pressure of trying to carry this all around on your own, right? And there you can finally just breathe. You can relax. You have to understand why you're getting up each day to do what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And are those priorities, or is that motivation really truly grounded in something solid, what I call unshakable, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to be really important for you to break free and break past, the fear of missing out or trying to always have to hustle or doing what the world says that of how we need to show up.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into like talking about consumerism and like consuming social media especially, right? How we can get so easily hooked into like, okay, I don't know how to rest for me, so I'm going to read an article on resting, and I'm going to find this person who's a rest expert, and I'm going to find this person who's, does this, and then consume, and then all we're left doing is feeling more overwhelmed and more overcrowded in our heart and minds about balance and rest in the first place. So what would you say about that? Is it really just come down to like spending time alone in prayer, spending time, just kind of sorting through your own stuff? Like, how does that practically look like in a way that's not about consuming other people's media and content?
Yeah, that's really great. So I like to actually share this from this perspective where we want you creating and not consuming. But in order to be in that creative zone, you do need to take a step back. And so resting doesn't always mean, to take a nap. Right? It's basically being able to allow God to direct you and guide you, right? Allowing yourself to be in that presence, allowing and trusting, right, that it's all already laid out before you. All you have to do is show up. And when you work from that way, it just flows. It really flows. And I don't really talk so much about balance. That seems a lot trickier and harder to do, right? But just allowing that to flow and allowing God to take the lead. Yes, because there could really only be one lead. And thank goodness it's not me. Thank goodness I don't have to. Thank goodness we don't have to operate in that way in our business. So for me, when I do business the kingdom way, it's really allowing that just to be Holy Spirit led.
Yeah. And I think that's where Jennifer offers like a very unique perspective in terms of her coaching, is that she really allows, God to lead the way for her and how she coaches and how she approaches, working with each of her her clients. And I think it shows in how you also would be like, on calls and be like, oh, I feel so refreshed. I just lay down for a little bit. Like you would live that out. And I think that's what's really unique about those style of coaching that you bring into it. It's very faith-led. And I think it's really important and needed in this world. So,
thank you. Yeah. And I work with people of all different backgrounds, faith beliefs, or even no beliefs. But there is one thing that I always say: I'm not here to convince, convert, or condemn, but I'm not going to shy away from my story, my truth, my testimony. And I would encourage you to understand what yours is as well, right? And what is going to motivate you each and every day, where it's not defined just by putting all this pressure on your own shoulders. I often tell my clients that our productivity is not tied to our worth, right? It's not tied to, our worth isn't even tied to our identity either. And so that's really important to be able to go at a pace with God's grace, to really understand, what that means for you.
So I know you mentioned a little bit about your story and like the burnout piece of it, but what actually made you want to hustle in the first place? I think that's important to know, like what's kind of that hook in for people to hustle harder? Like what are the things that people are saying that they follow these hustle culture leaders and all of that?
Yeah. Well, for me, when I launched Sales from the Heart, my business, it was a little bit different than when I was in corporate. So what ended up happening is I wanted to make up for lost time, for all the years that I didn't step forward into my gift and my calling, right? And I kept putting it off for a lot of years because I thought, well, I'm just not qualified. I was too young. I need to go get this certification and that certification. I need this experience first. So I kept thinking and making up all these excuses. So then when I did finally launch Sales from the Heart, I was like, go, go, go. I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to make up for all those years that I was waking and baking, or I was, just being a hot mess. I was masking. I was masking those hurts and those hang-ups and those habits that were deep in there, right? And so once I realized I didn't need to make up for that time, that I can just do business with God as is, right? And He works with me and through me, and I work for Him, then I didn't need to operate out of my own strength. I can just operate out of His grace and His strength.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think for a lot of people too, it's probably like, I definitely see that it is that like needing to make up for time, or I'm not where I should be, so I need to compensate for that, right? But I also see pretty often, especially in the younger spectrum of things, because it's so promoted nowadays with crypto and all these like easy trading platforms, and people just want to make a quick buck, and they try all these different things. They're scattered across the board with trying to make money, right? So I think that's definitely another piece that I've seen is a huge motivator that can lead to burnout really quickly if you're just chasing the dollar, because you get the dollar and then it's not enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that I did chase after that, like I said, in corporate, but I still felt empty. I felt a void. And so a lot of times you'll hear people where they'll hit those 6-figure, 7-figure marks, and they're like, well, I thought it was going to feel different, but it didn't, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're really stepping into your purpose, into your calling, and you're going at a pace with God's grace, it's totally radically different, right? You can be more flexible in what I like to call spontaneous structure, right? You can go with the flow of those things, and you'll remember your priorities. You'll actually maybe even tell a client like, hey, we need to reschedule because what's more important? Maybe your family, your health, right? As long as it's not developing into a pattern where you're constantly stepping into that, right? Where you're constantly rescheduling or moving a lot of things around, because that can be a signal too that something else is going on there. So Victoria, what about for you? Do you find yourself that at times you can still end up falling back into the hustle culture?
Yeah, I think I catch myself probably like once a month-ish around that. Yeah, probably once a month around that frequency. Because this is something, guys, that like you don't like you continue to grow and flow with it, right? You continue to learn and aggregate new things, and sometimes you're blessed and your business grows and you have to kind of work with that too, and there's new things that come into play. So for me, I think when doing YouTube started about a year ago and incorporating that into my schedule of already working with clients, I had to reassess and be like, okay, my current flow is not flowing anymore. How do I need to reaggregate things? And then sometimes about once a month, like I was saying, I get kind of stuck into some old patterns and old cycles. And I can denote that really quickly when I look at my calendar and I just feel like very overwhelmed all of a sudden. And I start to have like those mini thoughts kind of going off, like I can't handle this. This is too much. I'm overwhelmed. And then I know, like, oops, I didn't organize things
overbooked
right.
yourself.
I overbooked myself.
Yeah.
I was overly ambitious. I thought I could tackle more than I could. And I think that just comes with the grounds of, again, owning your own business and having new things come your way. So this is a process that I think we just constantly need to work on, and a muscle you just constantly need to work on.
Yeah. And also I would say to be okay with saying no, right? And being okay with maybe pushing out some of those appointments that people want to book with you an extra week or an extra 2 weeks out or even a month out. It's totally okay to do that. Sometimes we're just so in a rush to like, oh my gosh, somebody wants to talk to me. I got to get them booked on the calendar, but it's okay. It's okay because the right people that you're called to serve will be there.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And I hope this helped you guys too, and being able to learn a little bit more about hustle culture and how you can do this differently. It doesn't have to look like just hustle hard. You don't have to have Rick Ross playing in the background of your mind, which sounds like a nightmare, first of all. All right, everyone. Bye. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Bye.